My name's Al Bullock, and I was born in Utica, New York in 1923. I enlisted in Albany, New York. Then they sent me to Newport News, Virginia. And so my boot camp training was there for warm weather duty. I hated that cold weather up north. And so in Pensacola, Florida, I managed to get in the photo school. And the photo school was what I liked to do, and so I became a photographer in the Navy, and I had qualifications that would get me aboard ship. And so I asked for a cruiser. And they said, well, they don't put, the executive officer there said, they don't put cameramen on cruisers. You'll get a carrier or a battleship. And I said, oh, okay. They don't put them on cruisers. So while I'm going to school there, all at once, I wake up one morning and there's all kinds of gunfire. But they practice gunfire there all the time, so I thought it was a normal thing. But I found out the Japanese had attacked us. We knew it was coming. We just weren't prepared. Of course, they lucked out and they had the carriers all out at sea. So the only thing left were the battleships and a couple of cruisers. I wanted to board a cruiser because my brother was on the USS St. Louis, which was tied to a dock in Pearl Harbor. And when the battle started, I ran like hell from where my quarters were to the photo lab, and I said, give me a camera, I'll shoot pictures. And they said, no, we need you in the photo lab. You're going to develop pictures. So I'm the guy that developed and printed most of the pictures from Pearl Harbor. I had to go back to Pensacola, Florida to graduate. So I go back there, and I run into a kid that was just joining school. He was from Philadelphia, and he said, you know, they're building a new ship called a USS Santa Fe, and it is a gorgeous ship. Telling me how nice it was. It's a lightweight cruiser, light cruiser. I went back to the executive officer again, and I said, how about looking into the Santa Fe? He says, you're wasting your time, but I'll look anyway. He came back to me and he said, you got to be the luckiest guy in the Navy. They need a photographer because it's an admiral's ship. It's a flagship, so you'll be on the admiral's flag. And I said, God, that's nice. So I watched them christen the ship, put it in service, and then we did a shakedown cruise. And so we came through the Panama Canal right up to San Francisco. When we landed in San Francisco, I looked around and I said, this is going to be where I'm going to stay. I went from there right to the war scene, and guess where the war scene was? The Aleutian Islands, the coldest weather I've ever seen in my life. And it was so unusual because we were tied to the dock and they were putting on all kinds of gear aboard the ship, and I kept looking, and I went to our executive officer and I said, I'm the photographer with the flag here. Can you tell me where we're going? We can't tell you because of so-and-so naval operations and so on. I said, well, I got to order some equipment and it's got to be ready for, oh, he says that you're the photographer, okay. Here's where we're going, but you cannot tell anybody else on the ship until the last bowsprit is taken off. They have to take up anchors and undo everything and do all kinds of things. But when the last the gangway's aboard, and once they bring that bowsprit in, the ship technically is underway. And so then you can tell them. So they're all around me, all my friends. They said, Al, tell us what's going on. Of course, my name, I was a nickname, Photos. Photos, where are we going? And they saw all this stuff being loaded. And when I told them the Aleutian Islands, they all yelled out, no, we want to go there. So there we went, and we stopped the Japanese from coming down from Japan down the Aleutian Islands into Alaska. Right, one early morning, I was out, because I had a unique setup on the ship. I never stood any watches, or I got nailed on a watch, and I could tell you about that. But I put film in the front of the ship, in the middle of it, on the quarter deck, and on the stern. So I had a camera in different places. So when I ran out, if one camera failed me, I knew where another camera was. I had about 6 different cameras aboard the ship. Of course, I always liked the movie camera, because movie cameras, I was instrumental in making some of the movies of Victory at Sea. They're all 16 millimeter, so that helped out. So I'm on the stern of the ship and I hear a report, because I wear the earphones when I'm standing by the lookouts.
Yes.
And I heard a report that a bogey was in the area, and the fleet is spread out, you know, across miles of ocean. And so they picked up the bogey as an enemy plane, because they put radar on the what they call a friendly bogey, and it sends a little message back, and on the radar that shows a beep that it's friendly. But this other plane did not show friendly. But they kept saying that he's coming in on the right compass bearing that day. He lucked out. He didn't know that that was the bearing for coming in for carrier landings. They just can't come out of the sky and land. They have to come in on the bearing of the day. And this guy was coming in low on the water, and he kept coming, and then pretty soon the ship that I was on, they latched it onto the guns, and the guns now are being controlled by the early computers. And so it would vibrate and make noise. And pretty soon this plane went right up over the carrier, dropped the bomb, and took off. I saw the bomb fall, and when that thing hit that ship, it was an inferno. They had new rockets aboard called the Tiny Tim. The Tiny Tim rocket has an armor-piercing head, but it has a motor that runs it. They're in different parts of the ship, so the whole ship is open. The carrier, because they had to move them down. They can't carry them. They put them on rollers and roll the motor from one direction and the armor the other, and put them together on the deck of the ship and stack them. So they had all these Tiny Tim rockets on the ship, and also they had a Hollywood crew aboard that ship to show that new rocket that they had just developed. Now they had all the gasoline lines open because they were fueling the planes. So that's another problem. The ship's open, the ammunition's there, and so when that bomb hit, it went right through the hangar deck, and I understand it was just at that moment where we were at condition red, and the skipper of that ship put the ship on condition yellow. And so that was a little less than red, so they could go to breakfast. So they're all lined up in the breakfast line. So when it hit, it killed them, all the people that were there, because it went to the hangar deck. Now the ship is beginning to burn, and when it was burning, it wasn't just burning, it was billowing. And so we came alongside and took the admiral off and put him on a destroyer. Well, he talked to the admiral on our ship, and he said, "You guys are now in charge, so go back and help fight the fires." So we would come alongside and throw water on the fires, but the water would be washing off the ship like a flaming waterfalls, and we were fighting fires on our ship pretty soon. 1,100 people died there almost instantly in a short period of time. So now we had to do some rescuing. We put a lot of people out of the water. In fact, we came in on the second or third run, and we literally slammed into the side of the carrier and got pinned. Now we're pinned there. And so they put a gangway from our ship so they could take the wounded off. The firemen went on board. I went on board with the firemen. And I took pictures. I got a picture of a chaplain praying over a guy in the barrel. In the basket, and I got to know him later and find out that they rescued him, but he was only smoke inhalation. He wasn't shot or anything, but he said he didn't want to go in that basket over the cables, because if the ship separated, you know, the cables could snap, and he's tied in this emergency basket, and so he didn't want to go in the basket.